Welcome everyone to Grape Finance's weekly AMA. I'm your host Nikki again, back from being gone, and with me we have LB. As always, welcome LB. So glad you're here.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening in. It's good to see you.
Definitely, we have some people already. I can't really see how many because I'm looking at the questions, so that's a different screen. All right. I think we should. Of course, we need to start off with the questions, but also I would like to give you some time to give some updates for last week, if you have any,
hmm
or did we just, business as usual?
Yeah, we'll I think let's kind of just recap like a couple things. I will always go over like the soda press and wine press balances, and I think they have continued to increase this week as well. Soda press has kind of been on a roll. I think people
Nice.
like the compound mechanism in that one. Which I thought was a nice touch as well. I was kind of
Yeah,
get
and
some feedback from the wine press and implemented into the soda press.
right.
But
And I also think Wapo did it some good, right?
yeah,
By praising it so much.
yeah, he did. I mean, it's he's obviously a good supporter.
Oh,
But he's also realistic, and he's not going to just like support some garbage. In other words.
yeah, and that makes him great, right? That
Yeah,
make
yeah,
I think people should be realistic and
yeah,
and
yeah,
and shouldn't
absolutely.
just should always be careful. But we we
hmm
we say that all the time, and I'm
Yeah,
actually very happy about that.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. We're not like crazy hype men, snake oil salesmen. You know.
yeah, just buy. We'll be okay. We'll be great. You'll make 20x. No, you
Yeah,
you 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 could make a lot of money if you're
yeah. I mean,
careful.
that's like
Uh,
a lot of the degen DeFi space is kind of like that. I guess it's the Wild West. You know, and the Wild
yeah.
West is kind of like that as well. Snake
But
oil sales.
yeah, but I like to think that that is one of the reasons because in the last AMA, right, you said that we are one of the few seniorage protocols, are actually the only one on AVAX that is still standing from when we started, and
Yeah.
I think that this aspect or this stance that we have is kind of part of that, right?
Yeah.
We're not selling you bullshit, so that means that
hmm
when it goes bad we don't have to change our narrative. It's just like, yeah, it's just a bad spell, but we'll get back. We'll
Yeah.
get back.
Exactly.
And that's also is Wapo said that, and I believe it as well, right? We will get back to packs.
Yeah.
It might take a while, but we will, and
Yeah. We'll just
that's
continue
okay.
working, and
Yeah, about that.
if you give up, well, then you're never going to get back anyway. So there you go. So you know what I mean. It's
Yeah,
we just continue working basically.
definitely. And about that, do you have any new numbers for us about how much grape was burned somewhere, or do you
Oh
not have
yeah,
those ready?
yeah. So this week, we're doing just implemented a new contract. I think we burnt like another 10,000 grape, maybe 20,000 grape
Awesome.
this week. But we kind of slowed on the game burning.
Hmm.
But we're going to implement some new features this week, so that will kind of ramp up again. But also a new sort of minting token we're going to implement. It's kind of like an experiment. Maybe we'll touch on it later, but it's I'll give people a heads up before we do it. But it's kind of like a new, essentially a game token itself, which is illiquid, but designed only to be used in the game initially, but then integrated into other aspects of games that will come out as well. And that will be minted with varying tokens. So that will kind of help with burns of varying tokens, help with gaining POL as well, help with vintage, and also kind of just unify our games center, so to say, that we want to kind of expand. And at the same time, it'll be easier to track exact burns using that. So
Alright.
a
Cool. And
little thing.
when you say illiquid, do you mean that people cannot hold it and sell it, or what does that mean? Or
Yeah,
do you...
it's essentially you mint using varying tokens, and there's no market for it. You can transfer it, but there'll be no uh, LP for it. You can make an LP, like there's nothing stopping people to make an LP for it, but it won't be incentivized to do it because essentially it's just to be used initially in the winemaker game, which will be burnt anyway. So
Right.
so like it doesn't really make sense to make that liquid. In other words.
I getcha. All right, cool. I'm looking forward to what that's gonna be, definitely. And yeah, just that. And I don't mind when you say like it's been a slow week of burning grape, and then still, we burned like 10, 20K. I mean,
It's true.
that's still
I
good
mean,
numbers, right?
it's very good
If that's a
numbers. I
slow
mean,
week, it's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny you think about it, but if you're doing maths on you're doing some math on how much this or that would burn, based on volume or based on APRs or something like that, it would be much less numbers, in terms of the grape burn. But in the game burns very consistent, large numbers of grape, and that's obviously like the point of the game is not only to just burn grape. Like the point of the game is to actually kind of be a game that is enjoyable, and that
Like some fun.
there's some fun, and uh, it allows people to kind of play around and test their skills at trying out different strategies and things like that, which I think is a pretty cool part of the game that you can optimize it for maximum efficiency in different ways. We have some great tools. The Brewmaster tool from Crypto Neo, I think, is a really great tool for the winemaker. I think there's a link on the site of the winemaker game anyway for it. But
Right.
to kind of like help you optimize, so you can see all your stats and things like that. It's pretty cool. And that's so obviously the point there is that the point of the game isn't just to like burn grape. You know what I mean? It's there to kind of be its own thing and be fun to play and fun to use. And that's kind of why it is successful in burning grape, because it's not just
Yeah.
a burning mechanism. It's actually its own thing that burns grape as a bonus.
Yeah, it's kind of beautiful. I really like it. All right, then we move on to the questions, which is starting off by Sniper23, and he is asking, or they are asking, I don't know. Will I'm sorry. Will it eventually be possible to zap from Xgrape to MIM the same way we zap from MIM to Xgrape? I would honestly invest more capital into Xgrape if I were clear on how to exit Xgrape. If there are clear and detailed instructions somewhere in the docs on how to get Xgrape back to MIM, I apologize, I have missed them. I realize we need to jump to different websites, etc., but would love it if we were able to do all the transactions on the Grape UI. Keep up the great work as always.
Yeah. Right now, the Grape Minter UI, you can sell Xgrape on that, and that will essentially just do the first step, which is um, breaking out the vault tokens, the magic vault tokens from Xgrape. So then you would have to technically go to Magic Farms, withdraw from there, then that would give you the LP tokens, and then you would go to Swapsicle to break the LP essentially.
Right,
Fizzle has
because
some great. Yeah, what was that? Sorry.
no, I was just reiterating. So if you sell X grape, you get your grape MIM auto compounding token back, right? And then you have to deal with that. All right. Fizzle
That's
has
using the
something. I'm
Minter.
sorry.
Yeah, Fizzle has some great, informational charts and whatnot. As always, they're all. He does a great job on that. So, it's kind of to show the steps involved and to show what you need to do. I mean, if you have ever used an auto compounder, which a lot of people would have, is basically just withdrawing from there and then going to the LP. But you can also, because it is in an LP, it is in the X-Grape LP. You can technically sell X-Grape for Grape using that LP like any other LP. Like you'd buy or sell Grape using the Grape Mim LP. You can buy or sell X-Grape using the Grape X-Grape LP. It works the same. And then you'll obviously have Grape, and then you can do whatever you want with that Grape. But as well, I will be making it's on the list to make a kind of like a reverse zap to zap out from X-Grape to essentially either Grape or Mim or just the LP itself. So also we'll do that. But there's just want to touch on, there's a couple ways that you can essentially get out of X-Grape right now if you want.
All right. So to reiterate, you can either sell it for Grape, or you can turn it back into the auto compounding token and then deal with it, or you can wait until you create the zapper again.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, cool. Awesome. Peter Flea, who's always here. Love it, man. Yo fam. So wondering what's the best way to go a re-soda and wine press? I'm in both. Can we just accumulate wine press and not compound or claim, or compound both? How many times per week is optimal to compound either? Thought I hear we can just accumulate wine press and not do anything, but need to compound on soda. Thanks. And a kiss. You get a kiss.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're technically two different mechanisms. On the wine press, you technically don't need to compound. You can just, you can just let the rewards, you can just let your shares increase as people claim, people deposit. Each action of that increases technically your shares. So that is kind of like an incentive to not claim yourself, because then you would be decreasing your shares of the pool when you claim. And you can kind of just, get bonuses from everybody else's actions. And then on the wine press, again, to mention the compounding prevents you from being assassinated. So you can essentially compound and stay in the pool longer than 350% essentially, because you would compound. So that prevents that. And then soda press obviously is the same mechanism as the wine press, in that it stops you from being assassinated, so you can stay in the pool. But you also get a bonus when you compound. You get a APR. You essentially get more shares for compounding, and you get less shares for claiming. So you get less. Not only, I mean, I should rephrase. It's technically not shares. You actually get more or less actual pending LP tokens in the soda press daily. So you get more LP tokens daily when you compound, and you get less when you claim. Whereas in the wine press, you kind of get the same LP tokens daily, whether or not. But your shares do decrease when you claim still. But in the soda press, you get the bonus in that you compound. It then technically reinvests that pending amount to give you that amount as a bonus daily. And then if you claim, it reduces that amount from your claimable daily. So in the soda press, you are more incentivized to compound. But as well, at the same time, if you sit in the pool, the longer you sit in the pool, the more rewards you get from essentially other people's actions. As I said, every deposit, every claim from other people gives you the bonus from their essentially that tax that is taken off that action. So the longer you're in the pool, the better it is for you, and the more shares you have in the pool, the better it is for you. So obviously you want to maximize that, which you do from compounding. But obviously you want to claim too, so that you can take some profits. But I guess that's technically up to you how much you want to do that. So I probably recommend for the wine press, you kind of just sit in there to accumulate shares, and then when you pass ROI, you want to compound more often so that you can stay in the pool longer and not be assassinated. And then soda press, similar idea, but you probably want to compound a bit more in the beginning so that you can get even more of a bonus. And then as well, you want to at least compound a bit more than you're claiming, so that your bonus from compounding is more over time than the penalty that you would get from the claims. So keep that in mind.
All right. Yeah, and that kind of adds to the next question. Just to add, for 4 days compound and then 3 days claim, is that a good strat, or compound until bull and then start claiming? I kind of think that it's up to you to find a good strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because can't really say what the best strategy is. Or not because we don't want to say, but because we all need to find out what works best, right?
You have a different portfolio, different spread, different
Sizes.
needs, different time horizons. So
some people are looking for the long run, like years, and then some people are just looking for a quick win for weeks, and that's a whole different strategy.
Yeah.
All right. Fizzle says if you're just letting them sit there and claim, you might as well compound them. You'll get a lot more that way in the long run. Yeah, that's definitely true. Okay. Moving on to Sam21 is now called Need Sam21. Need Sam21. How far are we to think about making a DEX? I know that the DEX without volume is as useless as a rotten potato, but with the community we have, and with the community we will onboard through Vinium, I think we can bring the volume. Or can it be alongside Vinium and it be something similar to GMX, where there are only limited assets traded?
I don't think we'd make a whole DEX. I think it's a bit much. And I think with DEXs, the thing that you'd want to take into account is the liquidity that you can bring. If you have low liquidity on a DEX, your DEX is essentially useless. And you want good liquidity, because that's where people go to trade. They want good liquidity because they'll have the best price. And so I think, in other words, that kind of sets up to not make our own DEX, but make probably a service around that, like essentially a layer on top of it, a layer on top of multiple DEXs, to aggregate, essentially aggregate, or offer superior prices, offer things like MEV protection, offer essentially use liquidity that already exists on chain, but aggregate and offer better prices on top of that is probably something we'd look towards more than just making our index.
Yeah, it's not our game to make a DEX.
Yeah, Yeah.
All right. And
Yeah, I
what about
I
this?
was gonna
Oh,
actually
sorry.
chime in on that too. Sorry.
Oh
Hi
yeah.
guys.
How you going,
Good
man?
morning. How you going? Yeah. So I mean, just to add to what LB said, one of the problems with DEX is that we really don't want to compete with the DEXs that are out there, right? So they have
Mm.
massive amounts of liquidity. They incentivize that liquidity, so we would have to bring in a new token to incentivize that liquidity, like a farm token, and then engineer a whole new ecosystem around that token to make it beneficial, right? Because you have to have an emission schedule and stuff like that. So that's also a crux of the DEX. And it's we feel like, especially like with the Vinium ecosystem and the Grape ecosystem, we will have enough tokens to support. So we don't want to just arbitrarily throw in another farm token just to try to get people to come in and bring stablecoin yield and stuff like that. So I think that kind of sums up why we wouldn't do a traditional DEX. But there are some things that LB and I have been talking about, adding on to the services, adding on to the different service offerings that we will provide that could be like pretty much like all inclusive of a DeFi ecosystem, kind of like a one-stop shop to come over to us and be able to swap, be able to trade, be able to do a bunch of stuff. So there are things in the works and in talks that, to look forward to, not to try to leak too much.
All right, then I'll leave the GMX question where it is, hanging. Thank you so much, Nick, for elaborating. All right.
No problem.
Moving on to Neat Grape, who's saying, "Oh, this question has a lot of upvotes in many ways." All right, looking at Horde's recent TBAS NFT mint, that's what as a service? TB as a service? I don't know.
Trading boss, I think. I mean, I know
Trading bots as a service.
Horde
Thank you.
did there.
Yeah, Horde did.
I am a,
Gar did it too, I believe, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I am very bad with acronyms and stuff, so I'm sorry. All right, looking at Horde's recent trading bots as a service NFT mint, it strikes me that we have an opportunity to do something similar with our trading bot revenue here at Grape. I know trading bots are still very early days here, but where is your thinking at the response doing a trading bot profit share NFT? Do we have trading bots?
Yeah, we do.
We've
There's
invested
still
in some trade. Yeah, we've
yeah,
invested in some trading bots.
I see.
they're still technically in sort of like a training phase, so to say, but the market's been a little bit tough this last sort of 2 weeks. They've still actually been profitable, but lower returns than the weeks prior. But nonetheless, I think something like this I have been thinking about an NFT mint, something like that, to offer, to essentially raise capital for it as well, but also then deliver yield back to the NFT holders. I think I would do something more like a diversified portfolio with trading bots in there. But yes, there's something definitely thinking about.
Yeah, because
And it's just
when you think of, go ahead. Sorry, Nikki.
I was just thinking that because it's his profit share, it wouldn't be all that strange to just share it over wine holders.
Yeah,
That
well,
was just my
technically,
thinking.
the
You'd have
current
to
bots
share it to
are.
the NFT, right? So if you purchased an NFT, you would give the NFT holders the profit share, right? Because they'd be the ones raising
Then
the
yes,
capital for it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
the idea, right? Because now the capital is purely treasury capital. That's being, that's going to then be delivered back to the wine holders. But if we do a mint, well then the minters are paying for the investments, so they technically would get at least the vast majority of that yield. And maybe there's some sort of tie-in for wine in that, or some sort of bonus or something like that. It's a multiplier or something like that. I don't know. See, well, obviously this is like just an idea right now.
Yeah, I agree with you though, Luca, on the diversifying, because guys, like even in this market, bots can get liquidated. Bots can lose a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? It's not like it's not this like secret sauce where I do a trading bot and I'm just guaranteed to get like
Yeah.
consistent returns.
Forever. Yeah.
I've run some bot strategies on my own and stuff like that, and fiddled around with short money and stuff, and 9 times out of 10, if you're not sitting there constantly adjusting daily to the markets, I mean, a market moves 5% in one direction in an hour, those bots all get liquidated because they're not going the same direction. They're buying on the way down. Sometimes they're leveraged. And if they're leveraged, then they hit their stop losses, they hit whatever. And I've lost 10% in a day on a bot. I've made a couple percent here and there, and it just they're not an all-encompassing one. There are a lot of different ways and investment opportunities. So yeah, I don't think an all-in-one trading bot like NFT Mint would be the way to go. I think if you did that, yeah, it'd be some diversification.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very clear. All right. Then we move on to the next one is Dariola saying, how will wine benefit from Vinium? Will it be a share token of Vinium? And if so, what allocation from Vinium will it receive?
Yeah, it will receive some portion of revenue share from Vinium. The exact allocation will probably vary over time, because there will be obviously some need for a reserve for the platform itself as like an insurance reserve, and then also some for the platform to actually have for development, but then some for Vinium, the Vini token, which I'm thinking of ways to kind of like tie into wine as well, possibly like maybe even a mint and burn or something like that, to tie it in. But wine will get definitely a reasonable portion of that revenue, and essentially the revenue from all the services that come on top as well, not just the initial Aave platform that is launched soon. The other platforms that will launch around that as well. So this is essentially a one token that's going to be yielding from multiple different platforms, which has very high potential, I think.
All right. Very clear. Then we go to Joe ALWS. I don't know what to do with that. For Vinium, anyone know the work behind flash loans available to only devs? Anyone know the work behind flash loans available to only devs? How do teams/devs verify the safety of issuing non-collateralized loans based on only a contract that shows steps to execute payback of loan, interest fees, and in one transaction? And does that take into account on other safeguards, market condition, vouching of devs, etc.?
Flash loans
Yeah.
work. Okay, go ahead, Luke. I was just going to say the way they work is if you cannot pay back the loan within the same block, they don't succeed. So it's the safeguard is in the way that they work. I mean, do they work to exploit other protocols? Yes. Right. So but if a flash loan doesn't normally exploit the protocol that gives the said flash loan, right? Because you have to pay it back within the same transaction. If you can't do that, the transaction will fail. If that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like flash loans themselves are totally safe. In other words, they're open source. They were essentially invented by Aave themselves. They've been around for several years now, and they're used every day on every chain. A lot of times for arbitrage, a lot of times for liquidations. Essentially because it's an amazing tool. If you think about it, I have a opportunity where I can squeeze a 2 cent arbitrage, a couple basis points arbitrage on this pair, but I don't have that token, or I don't have enough of that token to kind of make it worthwhile. So let me flash loan, 1 million, $10 million worth, do the trade, make the profit, pay loan back, and I'm left with a profit. It's amazing. It's an amazing tool. And obviously it's open source. So like any dev or anyone that wants to even like look at the Aave docs to figure it out can do it. So it's not as if you're relying on any single person to operate them or whatnot. I think there's even tools like Furucombo, something like that you can. They have like a UI for it.
They do.
Only on Ethereum there, and Polygon.
But you can make strategies to do it, but I mean, it's extremely hard to do it through that UI without like some kind of price, like a node. Like basically, people that do flash loans, they have their own validator nodes, like so that they can get their transactions in first as well. I mean, it's a pretty heavy lift for the general DeFi user to do so. To do like flash loans.
And that's why it is like only dev, mainly targeted towards devs, in other words, because there's a few things that need to be taken into account of, and really like most people are not going to need to use it anyway, because it needs to be paid back within that same block. So like there's a specific purpose for it.
Yeah, and one of the good things about it too is like if you want to test your metal and try, like if you're a dev and you're savvy and whatnot, you're not really taking a chance because the transaction won't transact if you're going to lose money. So that's pretty much the beauty of it. Like you can do 1,000 flash loans, you just pay the gas, right? And if none of them succeed, you just lost out gas. You're not losing out $10 million. Like the pool's not being exploited for $10 million, $100 million, whatever. So yeah, I mean, if you feel like you want to try, like that's not really a risk for the protocol, so to speak. It's been a risk for other protocols. They've used flash loans to exploit other protocols.
Yeah, it's a risk in that you can manipulate like prices, and so then platforms that rely on those prices without some sort of average of that price can be manipulated. But you can't like drain the place where you're actually getting the loan from.
And they're actually great for the lenders too, because the lenders actually get the I mean, it's decentralized lending, right? So the lenders own the pool. Whatever pool is flash loan, the lenders get paid back that plus interest. So they get the fee.
Yeah. That is pretty cool. And you got me thinking though, Nick, when you said, hey, it's mostly for people who have their own validator node. I do know we kind of have a decent treasury, and I do know that AVEX is kind of low. So isn't that an option for us?
Well, so there's
one of those.
we could, but there's a second step to that. It's not just having 2,000 AVEX. It's actually setting up server infrastructure to create a node too. So there is a little bit more investment there, where you need to actually like either purchase in a cloud platform, a setup so that you can actually run the node, or set it up in your own private cloud, like at a data center, things like that. So that, the people that do run nodes, I mean, it is something that I think we've been thinking about. But
I still think
you could run an arbitrage bot, and then you could run an ARB bot within that same infrastructure, which is what people do. They do ARB and the notorious front run bots that everybody loves. They're normally set up next to the node itself, because they can submit their transaction before anybody else, like right to their own node, and it gets validated first.
Exactly. Yeah, well, it's kind of fun. And like I'm thinking that way, and yes, of course, it's more than just having the 2,000 AVAX, but Well, I don't think it's impossible at all, and it's a cool thing to be looking towards as a project, right? As a since then the funds to raise this thing, right, to get the setup and everything, and to get the AVAX, it would probably then come from the DAO. So it would be reasonable to then also share any profits that come from it over Grape Finance holders and stuff. So it's just a cool idea. I love it as an idea. Let's just
support the
very
network.
much. Yeah. Let's just very much reiterate, though, that we are not yet having plans towards that. It's just a cool talk.
Yeah, it's cool. So to do it for the purpose of running like bots and things like that would be a yes. For me, though, to do it for just running a node, I think AVAX pays like 7% a year. It's not worth the metal to set up this whole infrastructure and pay monthly fees to keep it running to get 7% in AVAX a year, right? So it would be worth it if we did set up bots and things like that. And I think that's a pretty cool topic of conversation and something to look forward to as like another service in this whole DeFi realm to add on top of it.
Yeah. Pretty cool. I love these kind of talks, and well, if this ever happens, I'm looking forward to it. All right.
We're gonna set up a server right in your apartment. We'll set up our server farm right in your apartment. So you don't. So you won't. We'll hook it up to the neighbor's electricity, and then you won't need to pay for heat during the winter. It'll be so warm during the winter. It'll be great.
Yeah, it's okay though. I think the Netherlands in general has pretty good internet. I mean, we're quite stable, not completely, but quite. I think better than Australia. Anyway, let's just move on. Where were we? I think we were with Need Grape. Would it be possible to use pending node rewards as a sort of debit card to burn directly in winemakers so people can burn grape without running into claim taxes below PAG?
That's something
pending node rewards.
Yeah, something I was thinking about, but that's not possible in this current contract. But that's why we will upgrade, and then we can kind of tweak things like that, because it would need to be done at the contract level. Otherwise, like how do we enforce that otherwise? But yeah, something I'm thinking about.
Right. Are you working with upgradable contracts yet?
Not this one is not upgradable. It's not a proxy right now, but it is. That's part of the plan is to make it upgradable, and then we can do like little tweaks like this even, which is nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because I've seen those work, right? The upgradable contracts, and it's pretty easy when you make a mistake. You can just upgrade the contract.
Isn't the migration?
What's the pitfall though? Isn't there a pitfall? I mean, for nodes and things that require easy tweaking, I think
it costs a bit more gas.
Yeah, it's more centralized as well, and there's some security issues that you have to keep on top of as well.
Okay.
But especially with like the implementation and then the actual proxy contract, depending on which proxy you use as well.
Exactly. You can't. It doesn't really make sense to renounce an upgradable contract, right? So it's got that security issue that the dev or whatever is the controller of that upgradable contract can essentially change everything. So that's a security issue. So you really need to trust the dev or the team or the multi-sig or whatever that's behind the upgradable contract. I think though that we have the community and the reputation to kind of pull that off. People, know that we're not going to rug. So it's a possibility for us.
I think it's beyond the. I would hope by now we're beyond the whole renouncing of contracts.
Exactly. Sure.
Right.
I mean, there's also other security issues.
That's what I was asking
concerns.
for. I heard
things that you just need to take into account when you're doing a proxy contract that you don't have to take into account when you're doing a standard contract. Depending on which proxy contract you use as well. If when you change the implementation, there's possibility that if you don't set that implementation and the owner of that, someone can technically set it themselves. It's happened before, and people have there's been some big vulnerabilities before where people haven't done the process properly, and then led to a big vulnerability where someone else gets full admin ownership because the actual updated contract is not owned by anyone technically because it hasn't been set.
Yeah, that's that was my question, was more for the fact that, I always wondered why not every contract was an updatable proxy contract. It seems so like constrained that if you deploy and then you made a mistake, you got to go to a V2 like right away. Like it's like,
well, it's more complex as well. It's a little bit more complex. It's a different structure, and it's
newer,
not immutable. Right? Yeah, it's newer as well. It's not immutable. It's not. It's not. It's obviously not as decentralized because it's you can upgrade the code.
It would be nice if you could if they came out with a way to be able to fix mistakes rather than like a fully upgradable. Like I forgot a comma. Oh no, I forgot a check. Like those, all the exploits. If they could just
run your unit tests, make sure you test it.
Yeah, no, the way we use it with Celestial Finance right now is that the controller of that contract, whether that's called the proxy or whatever, that I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's the multi-sig. So whenever we actually want to change something, then it needs to be a multi-sig or like it needs to be signed by everyone. Otherwise, it cannot be done.
People,
so yeah. So it's that's the safety net. But all right. Joe AWO, whatever. Joe AOS says, looking at Binium from a risk point of view, how's it going to distinguish itself from former predecessors that had trouble handling the following instruments: leverage, lending, borrowing, interest, and ultimately how it led to bankrolls and crashes? I'm alluding to recent events and to a lesser extent the Dow bust and call. And any idea of safeguards and how it's different this time?
Well, I mean, you can look at Aave, and Compound, Benki. They are essentially what the initial Vinium platform will be. It's based off Aave. Aave's pretty battle tested. They've survived multiple, minus 20, 30% days in the market. And essentially all the loans are over collateralized, even if they are leveraged in a way. It's essentially just the collateral already in the pool that is then just like looped around. And so then, if anything, it would just be price drops, collateral gets liquidated, and the loan is paid back because of that. And then that's it. So liquidations are essentially the main mechanism of how the system is protected, because all the loans are over collateralized. So I mean, Aave is a standing example of that. Survived with multiple billions in it. I think it still even has 10 billion now. But with multiple billions of liquidations, and they've stood the time. Obviously, one way you minimize risk is you choose assets with reasonable liquidity so that they can actually be liquidated on time. You choose assets that are easy to liquidate on the chain that they're on. I know things like Blizz was essentially an Aave fork, but they had an issue with Luna because they were on AVAX and they had Luna as one of their collaterals, and obviously during the crash, and they had UST as well. And obviously during the crash, there wasn't as much liquidity on AVAX as there should be to liquidate the amount that they had in their pools, and they also didn't. The oracles were also off on AVAX, and I'm pretty sure. Oh, I do know that Luna turned off the wormhole at one point as well, which meant that you couldn't liquidate on AVAX. Then, therefore, you would essentially only be able to liquidate on, maybe Binance or through the wormhole. But you couldn't because they closed that. So now you're stuck.
Yeah.
So essentially, you have bad debt now. So that was a bad choice on their part to put assets that are essentially low liquidity on the chain that you're on, and make it difficult to liquidate those assets when the time comes. And then obviously price oracles need to be up to date and secure, and we're going to be using obviously the Chainlink oracles, and then time weighted oracles as well, so they're not susceptible to flash loan attacks and price manipulation, things like that. So there's a few ways we minimize risk, and we follow the Aave model essentially. They manage risk really well.
Yeah, and I also think it's good to point out that one of the main things that you can use to collateralize your loan is Xgrape, and that is in essence liquidity itself, right?
Yeah.
So whenever Grape falls or whatever, Xgrape doesn't fall as quickly. So there's that gives you some extra time.
Bit of a hedge there, yeah.
So yeah, a good explanation. Moving on to Beige Beyond. Nick, could you mute yourself, please, because your kid is talking through it. All right, Beige Beyond says he has a link. Do I need to follow that link?
I've seen these guys. Yeah. I've seen these. I've seen Delta Prime.
All right.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool
platform. The question is, does the team have any thoughts in regards to Vinium with what they are doing over at Delta Prime? Seems like it could help with the above question, which has to do with, well, whatever we just discussed. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, Delta Prime is pretty cool. It's essentially under collateralized lending. So we are not doing under collateralized lending at this point. So we're not, I guess, subject to issues with collateral, as long as the collateral is liquid. But I really like Delta Prime's plan. There's also a couple other platforms that are kind of like similar ideas, like Sentiment and Gearbox on Ethereum, and Mars V2 I think as well has a similar sort of idea where they use accounts. So it's essentially like a whitelisted account, which is a smart contract account that you are allowed to borrow 5 times. You're allowed to borrow essentially using 20% collateral. And obviously the way they get it, the way they make it secure is that it's a closed box account, but not a centralized account in terms of like you don't need KYC and whatnot. It's still on chain, but they whitelist obviously the apps that you can interact with, because if you could interact with any app after borrowing, then there would be an issue. You could do things like essentially withdraw the money to your bank, withdraw 5 times the amount of money to your bank. You could buy some random token that you just minted, basically suck out liquidity through that. So essentially they essentially the point of it is to leverage up through big whitelisted apps like Curve, with main pairs like 3 the the 3-curve pool or the what's called the
MIM, USDC, and
yeah,
USDT, right?
the main big pools, and then Uniswap big pools, like WBTC, ETH, or ETH, USDC, things like that. It's I think it's a pretty cool concept, and something I'd like to kind of integrate in some sort of way in the future. It's a different thing to what Aave is, which is what we'll be doing initially, which is over collateralized lending. Whereas this,
and it's a bit more centralized, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, like, you could only use it for whitelisted apps. Whereas, if you borrow on Vinium, you can then use that borrowed capital anywhere you like. You can withdraw it to your bank account, to your to use in the fiat world, in the banking world. Whereas on a thing like Delta Prime, you couldn't use it. You couldn't withdraw to your bank, because essentially, how do you then enforce the paying back of that loan?
Yeah.
So
and you also don't own. It's like custodially owned, right? Like when you borrow, you don't own the assets. They're owned by a contract. Like it's kind of like
it's owned by the account contract that's kind of like deployed for you. So in other words, like the purpose of it is to leverage up in certain farms. So you get the leverage is the bonus, but the trade-off is that you're limited to the apps that you can use. You're limited to what you can do with the borrow, but you gain the benefit of under collateralized lending.
I mean, I guess we're doing something similar though, right? With Vinium, we're gonna do leveraged yield farming, so it's gonna be approved.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be approved assets to leverage yield farm, and you're not gonna. It's basically under collateralized, because you put up your LP and you can 3-5x leverage that. So it's a very similar concept.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Yeah.
There's
there is.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it is a very similar concept. Like instead, like so, depending on the pool and stuff like that, if it's like 3x leverage, you're able to stake your LP. Say it's like USDC, USDCE, right? One of those pools on Trader Joe, Pangolin, whatever, on Curve, wherever.
Yeah.
And you can actually stake $1,000, and then based on the pools that we have, if there's availability of USDC and USDCE on Vinium, you can leverage that up, say like 5x, right? So stake $1,000, now I can farm with 5,000. So it's literally an under collateralized asset that you're providing, but you're only allowing it to be used to do the farming, right? It's like you can't borrow, you don't borrow against it as well. Like you just borrow it to make the LPs.
Yeah, I get that. But are we actually going to offer that though? Or
yes.
were you just okay?
Not in the initial release.
Not initially, but it will be come out.
All right, that's pretty cool. Looking forward to that as well. All right, then we move on to Peter Flea saying, "Hey fam, when/if Vinium token comes out? Of course it will come out. What the hell is this? When Vinium token comes out, will it be limited supply like Aave? Your first phase vibe. Will it be limited supply is kind of the question."
Yeah, well, we want to keep it limited, but also flexible. So in other words, essentially, what would happen is we mint a bunch, we mint a set amount for a chain, for a specific chain, and then they are the rewards for that chain, and then we may mint another round for another chain that we launch on, and then that is the only amount, that's the fixed amount for that chain, essentially. But it's essentially the tokenomics are kind of still in design, so we won't launch with the token, because we also want to integrate the token with our leverage yield farm, and the other lending products that we come out with, and the other products that integrate as well, and on multiple chains as well. So in other words, there's technically no rush to release the token straight away, and we'd want to do it in a way that keeps it valuable by not having incredible inflation, but allows us also to be flexible when we move to multiple chains, so that we can actually incentivize people on multiple chains. One of the problems you have is that you launch on the one chain with the token, and then you basically all the yield is on that chain. But then if you launch on another chain, well, now it's just there's no incentivization with the token on that chain, and that's kind of dampens the impact on that launch. So we kind of want to avoid that and be able to incentivize all chains, but do it in a way where the token isn't rapidly inflating. But essentially, so the docs have some details on the token. They're not technically finalized, but they'll be basically around that, and we'll also obviously let everyone know prior to it actually launching, and the finalized details obviously around that.
All right. Thank you for that. Then we move on. We are coming to the hour, but we still have some questions, and I haven't even looked at the live chat, so I think we're going over. That's all right, though.
Might just yeah. Well, I'll speed it up.
Feynman, if I spell it that way, why are we in talks with? Oh wait, I think Neat Grape has something first. Yeah, Neat Grape. Last week, there was talk of migrating Grape MIM nodes to a detonator-style contract. What would the benefit of that be over, say, merging with the soda press, which provides deep Grape MIM liquidity and high yield already?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good thing. I've also been kind of thinking about that. I think I'm saying that moving Grape MIM to its own sort of detonator or pool is one option, but we can still even integrate it, essentially just migrate it over with shares to the soda press. That's still an option too. People seem to like the soda press, so
Definitely.
that might be a good option.
All right. Then we move on towards Feynman this time. Why are we in talks with EMP to get that detonator contract? I just see negative sides because first, we already have a press contract and it looks better to me. Second, they have that horrible 24-hour claim feature. And third, if we use their DeFi as a service, a lot of fees go to them. So what am I missing?
Well, I think EMP's contract has been around a long time. They've been very successful with it. They're also a very, very large community. I'd still say that they had the best seigniorage protocol, and they essentially that contract is has been refined over time. Some people don't like the 24-hour claim people, but some people like it. Some people, it's kind of hit and miss. People ask about it in the soda press too. Some people would want it, I've seen, but some people do like that there isn't one. I personally like that there isn't a need to do it every 24 hours because it can be a bit of a pain. But people have also mentioned that their lotto is very good. Their reward system, their reward structure is very good. It's better than the soda press is the current, which is fair. And I guess there would be some fees that go to them, but it would be. I don't know what it would be, but it would probably be 1%, which is a little bit, but wouldn't be hundreds of thousands of dollars or anything like that, and
Right.
or even tens of thousands probably. And essentially, EMP is a very large community as well. So it's kind of also be a bit of a partnership marketing, in other words, and at the same time, it's like not set in stone or anything. I'm just discussing options, and
Yeah.
if people prefer soda press, then we can do that. If people want detonator, then we can do or explore that option. So I think there's trade-offs and there's benefits to, like with everything really.
Yeah. So essentially, it has to do with forming a partnership and using code that has been battle tested for a long time. All right. All right. But we can also go the other way. All right. Then we move on to the last prefab question, which is Neat Grape. What do you see as the biggest risk for Grape or Vinium in the next year? The biggest one.
Biggest one. Yeah, biggest one.
It's hard,
I think,
right?
yeah, it is hard. I mean, you could say, obviously with any sort of lending product, there is, risk of protocol debt building. But I don't think it would be, we can manage that. I think the biggest risk you could say would probably be, you probably say the changing market, the changing dynamic of the market, and I guess how people perceive the product as well. I think it's more of something that is a mix between how the market fares over this next year and how much sort of revenue we can build to have a runway to build everything that we want to build in order to actually build a full product that people use during this time and cross chain and into the next bull market. We want to build sort of like a whole hub, and to do that, there's quite a few products we want to build out, and so kind of the risk is building out all those products in a cost effective fashion during a bear market, because the number of users is kind of low at this time, and so surviving the period through the market, depending on how the market fares over the next year too, something that we can't control. All we can control is how we can build, but we do have a lot to build and a lot of products to integrate together. So I think the risk that we have really is kind of almost scope creep, to be honest, and nailing down what we're good at and what we need to build, and figuring out exactly what the market wants and delivering that.
Yeah, and I also think like way back when I was in the army, there was a question asked to me like, what do you think? How do you think you will fare? Do you think you will make it? Because I was doing the sergeant's training, and I answered then to my commander like, I think the only way that I will fail is when I give up. And he said, well, you could be right there. And I think that is the biggest risk, if there's any, right, is that people just give up, and that could be the community. I don't think it's going to be us. Like we're not giving up. We're still here in this bear market, and we're
still
continuing.
Here.
Yeah, so we're not giving up, but it could be that people just give up, like, oh, this market is never going to turn around, let's just move on, and that's, I think, the biggest risk, and it could very well happen in a recession or depression or whatever it's going to be. On the other hand, right, it's the dollar is hella strong and rising, so we're still pegged to that. So
yeah, well,
there's no real need to give up.
well, think about it this way, right? Like everybody thought the same back in 2017. I mean, I know there's a lot of new, but in 2017, and everybody was like, the ICO craze, and Bitcoin hit 20K for the first time. Everybody thought, it's only going to 1 million from here, and then we had a bear market for better on the next 3 years, right? So, but then we had an even crazier bull market than we did before. So it's cyclical, right? Obviously the macroeconomic picture is kind of bleak right now, but it's cycles, it's ebbs and flows. So I think if we can ride out this ebbing period, and then the next flow will be just as big, or if not bigger, as it seems to go. And I agree. I think what we can't control are like just a general downtrend and general like user base dwindling. Investors leaving, trying to hoard their money and stuff like that. But with the beauty of what we're providing at Vinium and things like of that nature is that you can hoard your stables during this and still participate. You know what I mean? So like that's the beauty of what we're moving forward to, is like you can prep for the bear market and not hold blue chips, not hold whatever. You can hold whatever tokens you desire or you feel like strongly about, but you can also go the reverse and go all into stables but still use the platform. So it does give you the flexibility. And so but to answer the question, the biggest risk is, I think, money leaving, us not getting the reach that we would like, because like these platforms, we need a lot of influx of people coming in, right? So we have a great community with Grape, but we also need you guys to come help and spread the word as well, because that's the best marketing, is organic marketing, word of mouth marketing. So I don't know, use that as a takeaway, limit our risk and get the word out there to your friends, people, whatever. These aren't degen plays, so they're by and large a lot safer plays, especially if you're talking about investing stables and earning yield on stable coins that aren't UST.
That aren't UST. So sit next to your parents and explain to them how it all works and get them in.
And think about like even in the regular, like we say not degen, but in the regular financial world, they're pretty much degen. Like earning 20% a year or 10% a year on your money is unheard of in stable assets, right? You're normally talking about what's a bond yield, U.S. Treasury, like 4%, right? And that's really
a rise.
That's really high. That's because of inflation.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s in the U.S., bond rates were like 10 to 15%, but inflation was also like 15% back then too. So they
should be around that figure.
But they're not.
Usually, they perform yield curve control to fix that for themselves.
Well, it's an inverse. It's an inverse yield right now, right? I believe. So Anyways,
okay, I'm going over to the live chat. I'm gonna try and go through it a little bit quicker. All right, Saint is saying, "Hey, hey, Nicky, we're all in the same boat. Let's get it. Life is good." Well, that was about
Saint. Thank you, man.
Yeah, it's great. Could you mute yourself, Nick? So that was about, because we were talking before the AMA started, that our lives were actually, getting back to the good side.
Mm-hmm.
All right. BSE 4792. All right. I've not followed so long in the chat. However, is wine dead? Is protocol dead? Or do you expect the grape coming up to pack so wine will get value back? Funny is that Chenko is this supposed to be a question? All right. I think that kind of answers it, right? It's not dead. It's just low. And it's been lower. We're actually crawling back up.
Yeah.
Anything Anything
I mean,
to
you know,
add
the
to that?
you know, I mean, Bitcoin has been pronounced dead probably 50,000 times over the last 10 years.
Yeah,
Every
and
time it,
banned from
you know,
China as well.
yeah, yeah. So,
So
you
many
know,
times.
I mean, it's just,
It's
it's
not
funny.
dead as
Yeah.
long as we have a community, right?
Yeah.
And we still have a community, a great one, so it's not dead. It's still there. All right. Need wine wants all the wine sent to his wallet. So if you think it's that, send it to Need Wine. All right. Just sell your wine so I can buy cheap. So so much fun. Buy high, sell low. Yeah. All right. With okay, crypto disc golfer with V2 grape notes. When I compound, my APR slowly drops. When I claim, my APR quickly drops. Is there another way to slow the APR drop? It's hard to come out on top with a 50% tax and a dropping APR.
Well, I guess, you know, it
Yeah.
still kind of relies on the TVL of the pool
Yeah.
to calculate a APR. So obviously, if more people claim, especially now with the penalty, then you technically get a large amount less allocation, whereas other people would essentially get more of that allocation. So, in other words, you essentially need more, capital in the pool to sustain APR. In other words, so you compounding is not obviously adding new capital in, so it's not it's boosting your total possible amount plus the essentially your allocation. It's boosting your allocation over the standard amount, but you're not adding new capital in, and it's increasing the allocation. So in other words, it's sort of cutting out people that only claim, lowering their allocation compared to yours. But at the same time, it still requires people to create nodes in order to boost the APR higher. In other words.
Right. Then also about claiming and compounding. Josh from JMH Annihilation. He says it all in all caps, so you have to shout it. Is there a more cost-effective? Sorry. Is there a more cost-effective way to increase daily cash amount in WinePress? And then he says something that I find really odd. I've been claiming and then instantly redepositing, which should stay off assassination as it is counting as a new deposit. Ah, okay, but a 15% tax is not ideal. Are there any thoughts of mirroring some of the features of grape soda, like tickets for compounds and increasing daily cash amount earned? Thank you. Keep up the great work.
Daily amount in WinePress. I guess I think we mentioned before the what would do that is you technically doing nothing,
Right.
and letting other people's actions boost your share of the pool, and then you depositing fresh capital in. Or technically, you could take out the wine, take out the LP, put it into the auto compounder, for a few days, and then stick that back in, which is then more, as well as a fresh deposit, rather than just claiming and then instantly redepositing. If you were to claim, it'd probably be best to kind of have more to put in afterwards. So I think I think the grape soda was kind of like an evolution of it, and seems to be good. So I mean, I can't update it just like instantly. Would need to migrate, which is possible. So something we may do if something I mentioned before as well. If people like the soda press and how it works. that we would migrate that one as well.
All right. So it might come. Okay. Gopnik 3000 says, is it still a good strategy to get Grape Meme LP tokens, stake it, and then use wine rewards to get wine grape LP tokens, stake it to earn even more wine?
You can do that.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's it depends on the APRs of the farm and technically what you want to do with it. You can put the Grape Meme in technically X Grape, which would give you more Grape Meme LP tokens as well. It depends what you want to earn. You want to earn wine, or you want to earn more LP.
Yeah, I also think, for example, I like hoarding wine until the next time everything goes up, right? Wine right now is $20 and a bit. That's insanely cheap. And the reason it's insanely cheap is because holding wine and doing that and nothing else doesn't give you anything. So people just sell it, right? It doesn't give you anything. But the last time we were overpack, wine was over $200 each. So if you believe in us getting back to back, you might as well just hoard a bit more wine, and that could be a great strategy, but it's more long-term strategy, right?
Yeah, it's technically a higher risk because I guess you're not earning on it in anything right now, unless, as you say, you put it in the grape wine LP. Then you are earning, but you are subject to impermanent loss then, because
yes,
if the price of wine increases by say 10 times, the price of grape is very unlikely to increase 10 times. To kind of match that. So in other words, you would get less wine compared to just holding it. You would have less wine. In other words, if we hit $200 on wine, and you're in that LP, so you're subject to that, but you're also yielding at the same time. So it's trade-offs. In other words,
yeah,
and it's probably good to have a mixed bag.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
All right. Need Wine also says that I would, but I don't like impermanent loss. He has the question like, what are we gonna do when the bootstrap phase is over? Like, a wine emission is done, so what do we do next? I think that's all of the things we're doing, right? Definium and then all the other things that are going on. Those are
that's right. We're providing incentivization beyond just the seigniorage protocol for wine itself, right? So
exactly.
And in terms of LB, I think the question might be for grape as well. I mean, we're going to provide utilizations for grape, right? We just keep on coming out with things where you can utilize your grape and kind of make them more valuable, both tokens more valuable to have, right?
Yeah, and then for LPs, obviously, we're there's a few plans to implement some bonding campaigns. In other words, to generate protocol liquidity that we own, so we can limit how much we need to incentivize. And then obviously, we still have the presses going, which yield no matter what. And then there's opportunity as well to do some some technical DEX bribing through multiple through DEXs that offer that for some sort of incentivization. And, you still get the yield from the trading fees regardless, which I don't know, it depends on volume, but it has been high before, has been like 5-10% APR, even 20% APR on just the LP itself, which is not bad. That's with no incentivization. That's actual just trading fees. So in other words, we have a few options that we'll all use to kind of tie in together and incentivize LPs, but also limit. Obviously, we don't want to have any more inflation or make a layer 2 or anything like that. That would be the last case, in other words, which would avoid at all costs, really.
Right. I'm trying to skim through to see which are the most important things to still note. Lettuce thinks there should be a Finium for Idiots video. How it works for absolute beginners. I think that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we launch, we'll go through how-to guides and talk through what you need to do and how you deposit, how you borrow, things like that. What your health factor is, what LTV means, things, all that good stuff. We'll come out with some stuff.
Awesome. All right. Also expanding on the need grape question. Oh, wait, Chankel says, question, what about setting up a validator with our bots and all other bots, including trading bots, and sell it as a service through NFTs? Well, yeah, that's absolutely an option. I'm going to continue that. Also, expanding on need grape question, the new NFTs could have several feedback loops to reward wine holders, treasury, compound, and pay rewards. Right, yeah. That's also an option. Need WAP? Need WAP instead of WAPO. All right. The omen of our age is apocalypse. It's only hieroglyph. It's kind of there. Cenk also says, as you talked about EMP partnerships, a lot of people like and prefer SodaPress, and as it has already is already being built and is ready to go, could not make a partnership with EMP in any other way, but deploy something new like SodaPress to replace Grape Mim nodes before. Yeah, so it's still under consideration, right? It's not a set thing.
Yeah.
I am thinking to end it here. The one last thing is Dan the Man. Will a new winemaker tool be released this week or later?
Very rare tool. I think limited to 50 or 100. Won't be too overpowered, but be very rare. And also, yeah, we want to implement that alongside some of the other things we're going to implement with the game in a one sort of shot. And I think I mentioned in the beginning of the AMA that we'll have a new sort of mint token for the game. That's kind of where we're trying out, but also will be used in other aspects of the protocol and future games, future game integrations. It's kind of like the illiquid game token. So that will come out this week. Alongside S Vintage press as well, and the magazine buff that we mentioned as well.
All right, cool. With that, I think I'm gonna. Was Finium ETA mentioned in the AMA because he's late to the party? We didn't mention an ETA, did we?
No, we didn't. I think there was a post yesterday, I think it was the day before, maybe a couple of days ago now, on sort of the initial landing page, with the initial docs. You can read that, obviously. I think I mentioned the docs anyway. But, it's technically a work in progress with the docs. It's obviously a live document, in other words, like the Grape docs anyway. We've added a lot to the Grape docs over time. But to read it and get a gist of what we're planning on doing, how we're going to do it, the sort of the goals of the platform. And this week I wanted to get it out this last week. Unfortunately, there were a couple of things that needed to be adjusted for the main net compared to Fuji, which is the test net. So but this week is definitely needs to be pushed out. I'm going to push it out this week. It needs to come out this week.
Ooh,
for OGs
exciting.
to use, essentially. Like, it's going to be live. on the mainnet with all the features and functions for OGs to kind of play around with, give us some feedback, but also actually just use initially, and then we'll implement any feedback and just kind of like launch to the public essentially shortly after that. But it will be live anyway for the OGs. So like the beta is not going to be different from the public version, other than feedback implementation.
All right. Pretty cool. That's a very nice ending note, unless you want to add another ending note to sign things off.
I think I mentioned some good stuff there, some about the game, and Vinium as well, which are main features right now, coming out very, very soon. And obviously, I just want to thank everyone for listening and your questions and your suggestions too, and looking over them and thinking about a few things. And yeah, I mean, I'm pretty pleased where we are right now. It's already October, which is actually insane to think about. But I think it's kind of good as well. It kind of means that we've been around this long, that and through some crazy market downturns as well, that we can kind of essentially power through anything really. So puts us in a good position. I'm pleased.
We can even survive Credit Suisse and the Deutsche Bank because they're not doing well.
No, they're not. No.
Oh, they're not. Okay. Thank you so much, LB, and also thank you so much, Nick, for
thanks,
being
guys.
here as well. And
Thanks for having me.
You too. Yeah, definitely. I'm always happy to hear you guys talk, both of you. Do you have anything to add to the end of this AMA, Nick?
Nothing that Lord Bacon hasn't already said.
All right then.
No,
I also don't really.
Thanks everybody. Thanks everyone for listening, and good things coming out. That's about it. We have a lot of big plans, and we're glad to have everyone here.
Most definitely. I loved being back in the seat of being the host.
It's good to have you back.
I'm very happy. So I had a fun time, and I'm always happy having talking with you guys and back in the saddles. Need Wop says. And talking with this community is just great. I love it. So, all right, looking forward to next week. And with that said, I think you need to sign off, LB, because you opened up the Grape AMA.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.